We're on to
The Southeast Development
News Day on the Rise News channel. Let's cross live to Enugu State, where the Southeast Development Commission is hosting a major stakeholder forum focused on the region's long-term development agenda. The Southeast Vision 2050 Stakeholder Forum brings together government officials, private sector leaders and development partners to chart a shared path towards sustainable prosperity for Southeast Nigeria. Let's listen in.
Being consciously completed. As we discuss Vision 2050, we're doing more than planning. We're correcting the gaps of the past and aligning regional realities with national priorities. We're building the institutions that is capable of sustaining development long after we leave this room. So in that sense, we're not just participants in the forum, we're actually the actors that are tasked with ensuring that this time intent finally meets traction. Now, at the heart of our gathering is a central and urgent question. How do we ensure that Vision 2050 is not only ambitious, actionable, but also aligned and can be sustained across generations? And to answer this, I believe that we must focus on a single transformative imperative, and that is by grounding our strategy in local realities. We create policy coherence that is necessary to turn long-term vision into a continuous national reality. In my almost two decades in public service in Nigeria, I found that we do not lack vision as a country. What we often have a challenge with is alignment. And so this alignment could be alignment between federal and sub-national plans, between policy intent and the lived realities of the people that we serve. So I believe that the Southeast region is uniquely positioned to lead this shift. And this shift can be achieved by leveraging the region's vibrant entrepreneurial culture, its diaspora strength, and the deeply rooted community institutions to address a myriad of issues, ranging from insecurity, unemployment, to even climate pressures. But for Vision 2050 to succeed, I think that there are three things that need to be done simultaneously. First, it must translate local realities to national relevance. We have a number of frameworks at the national level: energy transition, economic recovery plans, even the human capital development agenda. But they will only be effective if they reflect what's happening at the local level. So for the Southeast, what does this mean? It means asking practical questions. As an example, how can its trade networks support national export diversification? How do skills, mobility, and technology gaps here inform human capital and digital economic strategies? Because when we have regional data, we have community priorities and sector-specific realities that are systematically fed into national planning. Policy stops being abstract. It starts being effective. Second, Vision 2050 must be aligned and not parallel to national priorities. And to reference Professor Okechukwu, who said yesterday, and please forgive me if I butcher this, he says we need to drop the philosophy of okay, out to onion, I believe, that do by itself for itself. We need to align. Too often plans sit side by side national plans instead of being embedded within them. Alignment doesn't mean loss of autonomy. It actually means strategic coherence. And a coherent system is one that would look at, for example, industrial process. How do they complement national value chains as opposed to compete with them? How are infrastructure investments reinforcing national, for example, national transport and energy corridors? Alignment reduces duplication, so it allows us to do more, attracts private investment, and will strengthen the case for sustained federal and development partner support. Third and lastly, continuity must be designed into the system. Nothing must be left to chance. Vision 2050 will only endure if it survives changes in administration, leadership, and political priorities. Therefore, it requires strong institutions and not personality-driven frameworks, clear implementation pathways that are measurable, legal, fiscal, and governance mechanisms that lock in long-term commitments. So we should know that and appreciate that continuity is not about maintaining the same policy forever. Rather, it's about ensuring that transitions build forward as opposed to start over. Ultimately, Southeast Vision 2050 is not just a regional aspiration. I believe it's a test case for how Nigeria can move from fragmented planning into integrated development, where our local realities will shape national priorities and where national frameworks will empower regional development. and transformation. So if we get this right, when it gets this right, the Southeast will not only secure its future, it will offer a model for policy coherence and continuity across the Federation. I thank you for listening.
As the Special Senior Assistant to the President on Regional Development, Office of the Vice President, let's appreciate her. A well-educated woman, Dr. Miriam Temitope Masha, from Unilag to John Hopkins to Oxford, a well-rounded woman. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, because of our time, I will appeal to those that will be doing goodwill messages now to just do 2 minutes, please. And we are kicking off with the President General of Organized People Worldwide. Let me welcome here the Senator John Azuka Martin.
You what? Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency, the Governors, Governor of Enugu State, my landlord, Governor of Ebonyi State, Governor of Anambra State, Governor of Abia State, and the representative of the Governor of Imo State.
Ndị eze dị ebe a, na ndị Igbo niile dị ebe a, ekene ụmụ Igbo kwenu. Ndị Igbo nọ nnukwu ebe a. Igbo kwenu. Igbo kwezuonu. His Excellencies, I'm honored to address this distinguished assembly at the Southeast Development Commission Vision 2050, the Regional Stakeholders Forum. This gathering represents more than a development conversation. It is a moment of reflection, renewal, and renewed commitment to the future of the Southeast within a united Nigeria.
The theme of this forum, charting a shared path to sustainable prosperity for the Southeast, speaks directly to the aspirations of our people. It reminds us that development is not only about infrastructure and economics,
it's also about trust, inclusion, and a shared sense of belonging in the national project. The Southeast has contributed immensely to Nigeria's growth through enterprise, innovation, and resilience. Yet, it will be dishonest not to acknowledge that over the years, feelings of exclusion, neglect, unresolved grievances have taken root in parts of our region and our subconsciousness. These sentiments, if left unaddressed, can weaken national cohesion. It is in this context that the Southeast Development Commission assumes profound significance. Beyond its statutory mandate, the Commission represents the powerful instruments of reconciliation and healing in our national psyche. When properly empowered and adequately funded and sincerely supported, it can become a visible demonstration of the federal government's commitment to equity, justice. When properly empowered and adequately funded and sincerely supported, it can become a visible demonstration of the federal government's commitment to equity, justice, and inclusive development in Nigeria. On behalf of Ohaneze Ndị Igbo worldwide and the millions of Igbo people at home and in the diaspora, I respectfully appeal to the federal government to fully utilize the Southeast Development Commission by providing it with appropriate and sustained funding. Doing so will not only accelerate development, it will also go a long way in assuming and assuaging lingering ill feelings and rebuilding confidence and healing old wounds in Igbo land. Your Excellency, this is the time to heal. It is the time to replace suspicion with trust, despair with hope, and marginalization with meaningful inclusion. Development, when sincerely pursued, is one of the strongest tools for peace and national unity. As stakeholders, we equally bear responsibility. We must support the Commission with ideas, oversight, and partnerships, as well as accountability. We must ensure that it is intervention people-oriented, people-centered. It must be transparent and impactful. It must reach our communities, empowering our youth and restoring faith in public institutions. Let Vision 2050 mark a turning point, a future where the Southeast is fully integrated into Nigeria's development agenda, not in words alone, but in visible action. A future where our youths see opportunity instead of frustration, and where unity is strengthened through fairness and shared prosperity. I thank you all for your commitment to this historic endeavor. God bless the Southeast. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The President General, Ohaneze Ndị Igbo worldwide, thank you indeed.
Just as we have the CEO of the UBA, Oliver Alaoba. We have with us Executive Secretary of the National Agricultural Land Development Authority, NALDA, Mr. Shegun Adebayo. Please also welcome the Executive Secretary of NADF, Mohammed Ibrahim. Can we applaud them all? I know they're here. We welcome them. Absolutely. And moving on very swiftly, we now invite for a goodwill message, which I know should keep under 3 minutes. The chairman of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Lady Southeast region, Looking regal in your blue attire, please welcome with applause Lady Dr. Ada Chukwudozie.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, distinguished Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON. Your Excellencies, the Executive Governors of the Southeastern States must fully acknowledge the host governor and my own governor brother, and of course, the governors of Abia, Ebonyi, and Imo. You have my full respect. Leaders of the National Assembly, distinguished ministers, board and management of Southeast Development Commission, captains of industry, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Southeast, I congratulate the Southeast Development Commission, the Office of the Vice President, the Ministry of Regional Development, and the Southeast State governments for convening this historic forum. It is timely, very necessary, and quite strategic. The Southeast is one of the most entrepreneurial regions in Africa. Our people build, trade, innovate, and create. I speak today on behalf of manufacturers in the Southeast, those who invest, produce, employ, and export, often under some of the most challenging operational conditions in the country. Yet, the truth must be told. Our industrial potential is highly constrained by infrastructure gaps, high cost of energy, weak logistics, limited access to long-term finance, and fragmented regional coordination. Despite these challenges, the Southeast already possesses strong advantages, which are the highest concentration of indigenous manufacturers, dense small and medium enterprise networks, and a strong diaspora capital base ready to invest if the right structures are in place. I must say that manufacturing is not trade. Manufacturing is long-term, capital-intensive, productivity-driven, and remains one of the strongest. Nigeria is to industrialize. The Southeast must industrialize. Southeast Vision 2050, therefore, represents a defining opportunity to build a true production economy. one that is anchored on industrial parks, agro-processing corridors, a strong regional energy backbone, SME clusters, and skilled workforce. This vision should be delivered through state-anchored industrial clusters, leveraging Abia's manufacturing depth, Anambra's enterprise density, Enugu's logistics and services hub potential, Ebony's agro-processing strengths, and Imo's emerging energy assets. Our clear ask is simple: prioritize reliable and affordable energy, shared industrial infrastructure, and patient long-term finance as the foundation of this vision. As manufacturers, we are ready to partner with government. We are ready to invest. We are ready to create jobs. And we are ready to build export-oriented industry. But the industry needs systems. It needs policy stability and execution discipline. We look forward to a Vision 2050 framework that is not just aspirational, but executable, bankable, investable, and sustainable. One that can translate our enterprise energy into industrial power and shared prosperity. The Nigerian Southeast stands fully committed to this journey and pray that this forum will mark the beginning of a new era of coordinated, competitive, and inclusive growth for our region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll continue to appeal for those that are coming here for the good message. Let's try and stick to the 2 minutes. Thank you. But let me quickly recognize the following. I'd like to welcome here the Honorable Minister of Trade and Investment, the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. I welcome you. Thank you very much. The Minister of State, Foreign Affairs, Her Excellency Bianca Ojukwu, is also here with us. Welcome you. The Managing Directors of federal agencies that are here, Engineer Jennifer Digite, and the Niger Delta Power Holding Company is here with us. We welcome you. Thank you very much. Let me also welcome Cornelius Adebayo and the National Agricultural Land and Development Authority, Usoma Waga, and the City Corps, Abia, the Director General of the National Council for Arts and Culture. There are federal permanent secretaries here with us. Dr. Vitalis Obi, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum Resources, and Dr. Omusoro Maduka, Permanent Secretary, Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs. I welcome all of you to Enugu. Thank you very much. So let me welcome here representing our corporate titans that are here, the Group Managing Director and CEO of UBA, Mr. Oliver Alawada. This way, this way. 2 minutes, and you've taken 30 seconds already. I welcome you. Please kindly back for the beginning. They want to take you, that's why they're clapping for you.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, most distinguished Senator Kashim, GCON, the governors of all the southeastern states here, the governor of Enugu State, Abia State, Anambra, and Ebonyi. The honorable ministers, I've seen many political leaders from Southeast, business leaders from Southeast, traditional leaders from Southeast, and religious leaders from Southeast, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. So I speak as the GMD of UBA and the chairman of Bank CEOs. I also speak as a member of the corporate Nigeria today. So my question is, what does the corporate Nigeria need from Southeast? And what can the corporate Nigeria give to Southeast? I think what we need most is peace. In my experience managing UBA in 4 countries, the most important incentive to investment is peace. Funding flows to where there is peace. The second thing we need is infrastructure development. I would like to really commend the governors for the improvement we have seen in infrastructure in the Southeast. During the Christmas, I was in my village in Abia, and I traveled to Anambra State, Enugu State, Ebonyi State, and Abia. I can attest to the improvement infrastructure. Our governors have done well. We have to commend them. But they can do a little bit better through connectedness of infrastructure development in the states. We would like to see infrastructure, particularly energy, is important for development. We want to see a railway system that connects all the cities in Southeast. These things can be done. What we need is the peace and the working together that will enable that to be done. And that is why where the Southeast Development Commission comes in. We have convened this forum. We have to continue to connect everyone in the Southeast for us to work towards that vision of 2050, which I believe is possible. We also need jobs, and jobs. And that will come through improvement in the production capacity in the Southeast. We need to get our diaspora communities back with the funding. Diaspora, in this case, not just those in outside Nigeria, but those outside Southeast that are within Nigeria. We need to bring back the production back to the Southeast. What can corporate Nigeria give? We can provide funding for these projects. Once the projects are bankable, what the projects are clear and measurable, we can provide the funding for these projects to happen. I would like to say that the commitment I've seen even in this room today shows that it is possible for the federal government, the state government, the Southeast Development Commission, and indeed the private sector to work together to ensure a viable Southeast. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause as he makes his way off the stage. We're moving on very swiftly, and we appeal once again that you keep your goodwill message to 2 minutes at the most, please. 2 minutes maximum. At this point, we'd like to recognize very quickly the Honorable Minister Kingsley Ude, SAN, and Honorable Minister of Science and Technology. Do I hear your applause? Okay, that does it. Moving on very swiftly, we'll take our next goodwill message, this time a representative from the Diaspora. Please welcome the CEO of Umuigo Unite, speaking of Madam Ijoma Okoli. Madam Ijoma, are you here? Okay, it will be a long walk, but I know you'll make up for the distance by keeping it at 2 minutes, just so that I don't hover around your shoulder. An applause will make her steps faster. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Governor of Enugu State, Dr. Pitamba, all the governors and ministers of the Southeast here present, and distinguished leaders and stakeholders, all protocols duly observed. So my name is Ijoma Okoli, and I serve as the CEO of UIU, Umuigo Unite, also known as UIU. UIU was founded 22 years ago with a simple but powerful goal: to unite Igbo professionals in the diaspora and build a storied, connected community rooted in culture, opportunity, and shared responsibility. Today, UIU has 14 chapters across North America in major cities such as New York, New Jersey, Houston, Dallas, Texas, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Toronto, Canada, with thousands of actively engaged members and a broader reach of 40,000 across the Igbo diaspora. Our members are largely young Igbo professionals who remain deeply connected to the Southeast and eager to contribute through skills, enterprise, and service. Through regular chapter events and major annual conventions hosted in the most populous cities, this year it's going to be held in Chicago, August 6th through 9th. UIU has become a home away from home for the diaspora, while creating meaningful impact in each host city. This impact has been recognized by U.S. city leadership, with UIU honored by mayors and city council members in places such as Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, to name a few. Collectively, our active membership represents significant economic capacity, with an estimated combined net worth of $300 million, or roughly 450 billion naira, reflecting both earning power and long-term investment potential. I'm here today representing that diaspora voice and commitment. Complementing this work is the UIU Cares Foundation, UIU's humanitarian and impact arm. Through UIU Cares, we have executed medical missions, health interventions, scholarships, and trade training, and community development projects across southeastern Nigeria from the diaspora, translating diaspora goodwill into tangible outcomes on ground. UIU Cares is intentionally structured to align its initiatives, projects, and programs with the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, ensuring that our impact is measurable, sustainable, responsive to real community needs. Together, UIU and UIU Cares reflect a full ecosystem of connection, capital, and compassion, working in tandem to support long-term development in the Southeast. So as we begin day 2 of the Southeast Vision 2050 Forum, I bring warm greetings from the diaspora community. The discussions from day 1 serve as key priorities for the Southeast. Today's focus on institutional and multi-stakeholder alignment is essential to turning these priorities into action. For the diaspora, the Southeast is not an abstract idea. The Southeast is home, its heritage and responsibility. Our interest in this process is grounded in outcomes: stronger institutions, security, jobs, skills, and opportunities that endure beyond plans and documents. While 2050 marks the horizon for full realization, Impact does not have to wait. Based on the presentations and discussions so far, that work has already begun. With continued coordination and commitments, we can see meaningful progress now, building steadily toward full realization over time. What makes today especially important is the emphasis on shared commitment and institutional coordination. Vision becomes reality only when leadership aligns across institutions and sustains momentum through implementation. The Diaspora stands ready to engage as a long-term partner, bringing skills, enterprise experience, capital, and global perspective in structured and practical ways that support the priorities emerging from this forum. I commend the MD, Mark Okoye, the Southeast Development Commission, and all partners for creating a platform that brings technical insight and collective leadership together. This is a defining moment, and how we align now will shape what is possible for the Southeast today and for future generations. Let no one leave their brother or sister behind. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome, in the spirit of collaboration, all the MDs and Executive Directors of the Northwest Development Commission, North Central Development Commission, Southwest Development Commission that are here. Can we put our hands together for them, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me also welcome here the Chairman of NDDC, Mr. Chief Esquire, and the Chairman, MD, Michael Obuku, PhD, Managing Director and CEO. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to talk to us now is the Honorable Minister for Regional Development, Engineer Abia.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, let me also recognize the presence of all the governors of the Southeast region, starting from the governor of Enugu State, the post-governor, the governor of Ebonyi State, the governor of Abia, and that of Anambra State, and also the representative of the governor of Imo State. Let me also recognize the presence of the representative of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Professor Juros Ihore, and also to be recognized members and chairman members and managing directors of the Southeast Development Commission and all other development commissions that are here present. Let me also recognize a number of personalities that are here. If I do not mention you, it's not because you are not important, but it's for the simple reason that I may not necessarily know the person. But I can see Mother Elsie here. You are welcome to Southeast. I'm sure we are meeting for the second time in a program organized by the Southeast Development Commission. But before I make my speech, let me publicly offer apology to the President, the Vice President, because I came a little bit late. The reason being that I made an attempt to be here yesterday to formally receive you here in Enugu. Unfortunately, I was unable to land. I had to go back to Abuja. So I had to make alternative arrangement to be here today. Let me say that I am privileged and honored to welcome and address this distinguished gathering of Southeast stakeholders, which without doubt is a defining moment in the development trajectory of the Southeast region and indeed of our nation. This forum is not only a ceremonial event, it is also a strategic summit. and a deliberate effort to move the Southeast from fragmented, short-term development interventions to a more coherent, long-term regional vision anchored on evidence, inclusion, and shared ownership. Needless to say that this is an opportunity for Southeast stakeholders to own the Commission and utilize it to effect development in the region. Under the leadership of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, the federal government has made it clear that regional development is central to national prosperity. The establishment of Southeast Development Commission is not symbolic. It is an institutional commitment to coordination, integration, and sustained impact. The Southeast Vision 2015 is built squarely on this commitment. The Southeast is uniquely positioned within Nigeria's development landscape. For example, Abia State with Abia as a manufacturing and SME hub represent the region's strength in light industry, craftsmanship, and enterprise formalization. Anambra State stands out in commerce, logistics, innovation, and private sector-driven growth supported by strong urban centers and market networks. Ebonyi State contributes significantly to agriculture, solid mineral, and food systems with growing relevance in agro-processing and value chains. Enugu, of course, our host, remains central to institutional coordination, energy transition, dialogue, education, and regional administration. Imo State combines human capital depth, technology adoption, and diaspora linkages, positioning strongly in knowledge-building sectors. It is therefore expected that the Southeast Development Commission would privilege on above areas where the region has cooperative advantages to advance the cause of development in collaboration with state governments. This brings to mind to say that development commissions are not another layer of government, but they are agencies under the federal government to collaborate with state governments and local government. Therefore, the idea of competing with state government address of them should be ruled out completely. Notwithstanding their goal, the region continues to face structural constraints, infrastructure gaps, youth unemployment, security challenges, degraded regional ecosystem, limited regional integration, and weak coordination frameworks that prevent the full protection from being realized. It is my hope that SEP 2050 will confront these realities, not with rhetorics, but with deliberate planning, institutional clarity, and long-term discipline. This initiative recognizes a simple truth: no region can sustainably develop through isolated projects alone. What is required is a shared vision supported by strong institutions and collective commitment. The structure of this forum is intentional, sequencing technical dives before political alignment. The SEP 2050 process reverses an old pattern where qualities precede evidence. Instead, leadership here is being invited to respond to stakeholder validated priorities grounded in data, feasibility, and inclusion. This approach reflects a maturity in regional planning, one that aligns fully with the renewed hope agenda of this administration, which prioritizes sustainable growth, institutional framework, and shared prosperity. This is not a static plan. It is a living framework designed to evolve while maintaining strategic discipline. The federal government, through the Ministry of Regional Development, stands fully committed to supporting this process through coordination, policy alignment, and sustained engagement. It is therefore imperative to note at this very juncture that the federal government, through the Ministry of Regional Development, is contemplating reviving the commodity ecosystem across the regions. Once this proposal gets the necessary imprimatur, we will be looking forward to the era where palm oil of Southeast region and Abakaliki rice dominating international markets. As we proceed through this forum, I urge all stakeholders to engage with candor, responsibility, and a long-term mindset. This is not about winning arguments, it is about building consensus, it is not about individual projects, it is about collective transformation. The decisions, priorities, and commitments emerging from this forum will shape the Southeast, not just for the next election cycle, but for a generation. Let me conclude by reaffirming that Southeast Vision 2050 is an opportunity to set the development narrative of this very region, anchoring it on evidence, collaboration, and shared prosperity. If we get this right, SEP 2050 will stand as a model for regional planning in Nigeria, demonstrating how leadership, institutions, and citizens can come together to chart a credible and implementable path to sustainable development. Before I conclude, let me, at this juncture, avail myself of this opportunity to make a few other remarks. I know in about a year and a half ago, I've had the opportunity to be in Abia and Imo to commission a number of legacy projects on behalf of NDDC. What that means is that today, the Southeast region, apart from the NDDC also intervening in those two states, you have the Southeast Development Commission that will also intervene in your area. I want to therefore use this opportunity to appeal to both managing directors of NDDC and Southeast Development Commission, including the Southwest Development Commission, to come together and take a look at what you can do in terms of mega projects that can link these two regions together. We should not just look at areas where we keep on looking at projects that are being done by local government and states. So it is expected that with this commission in place, we will be looking at mega projects so that in a very short time, we will be called upon to commission rail line, perhaps from Port Harcourt to Enugu, just like that. Those are the kind of projects we expect you to back upon. And I also want to use this opportunity to commend the efforts of the chairman and managing director of Southeast Development Commission, because so far they have demonstrated a clear vision, indicating that they know what they are putting there. Because for me, we have about 5 of them. 2 of these commissions were inaugurated about a year ago, and 3 others were inaugurated very 7 months ago. But of all, I want to make a statement openly that Southeast Development Commission, led by the young man Mark Okoye, has really demonstrated vision and shown that he knows what he wants. And I'm also very happy. I'm very glad. My happiness today is for the simple reason that for a very long time, it is difficult to come to a ceremony like this. You have all the governors of that region seated. 3 days ago, I was in Kaduna for a similar project. Not that I'm reporting, because when we left, I know some persons who spoke after us, they also made that remark. But we didn't have one of the governors. The implication of what is happening here today is that the people of Southeast region believe that this commission is their own and they are ready to own it. Once again, I have to thank you and with this forum to productive deliberation and enduring outcome. Thank you very much. God bless you, and thank you, the Vice President, for honoring us to be here in person. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's called energy. Thank you very much, sir. We shall progress very swiftly. We're not doing too well with time, but hopefully those who will come up next will help us keep it as brief as possible. And being in the city should count for something. And this is where we would like to make a recognition that we believe should have come earlier. But we would like to recognize, as I have here, the Secretary to the State Government of Enugu State, Professor Chidebere Onyeka, we know you here. We thank you for being here. Welcome. Do I hear your applause? Yes, I hear it. Moving on very swiftly, please welcome on stage for her goodwill message, and hers will be to represent all Federal Executive Council members and heads of agencies, speaking of the Minister of Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, you are here, yes, I see you. Please make your way. Okay, that's the shelter right. Resounding applause will be very much in order. It will help her with her steps and help us with brevity of her speech, hopefully. Thank you. Do you want this one? This one or
Your Excellency, His Excellency the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellencies the Governors here present, please permit me in the interest of time to stand on all existing protocol. Today's Southeast Vision 2050 Regional Stakeholder Forum is an important strategic step in aligning ambition with execution. This engagement, driven by the Southeast Development Commission in partnership with the Ministry of Regional Development and the Office of the Vice President, signals a deliberate push to build a shared long-term development pathway anchored on collaboration, coordination, investment mobilization, and disciplined delivery. The vision will be measured by outcomes in the real economy, such as jobs created, firms that scale beyond micro-level investments and that manifest from announcements, value chains that deepen from production to trade. This is where the mandate of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment aligns with the vision. Industrialization, investment facilitation, and export competitiveness. I was really delighted to listen to the regional chair of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. The economic diversification that will lift our people into prosperity. The Southeast already has many of what many regions are trying to build. Dense entrepreneurship, trading networks, prolific industrial clusters that already produce at scale. And that is an incredible asset. Your well-known markets and manufacturing clusters show how local specialization can drive jobs and value creation when infrastructure and finance are aligned. With historical projects such as the National Single Window going live across our seaports on the 27th of March this year, the Renewed Hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, is progressively tackling the constraints that have limited the expansion of international trade and productivity. Improved energy, trade facilitation and logistics, access to affordable finance, and standard and quality infrastructure, land and industrial park readiness, and coordinated policies of government across institutions. You see, our speech was almost mirrored. Already, today's data reminds us that both the urgency and the opportunity exist. Nigeria's total merchandise trade was 38 trillion naira in Q2 2025, and this is a strong signal of expanding market activity, and achieving $6.1 billion in non-oil exports in 2025 is evidence of diversification that accelerates when standards, productive capacity, trade logistics, and market access are aligned. Just yesterday, the World Bank described Nigeria as an emerging reference point for steady and credible reform leadership, citing sustained policy consistency, tough fiscal choices, and growing investor confidence under the current administration. after the stabilization of the economy over the past 2.5 years, the shift to growth through the actualization of the promise of the African Continental Free Trade Area and the cultivation of new trade and investment relationships across the world has not gone unnoticed. Let me conclude by announcing the commencement of the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment African Continental Free Trade Area Subnational Tour this quarter. It's a program on trade facilitation that will collaborate with each geopolitical region, converging state and local government area leadership to develop a pipeline of export-ready products across the country for regional and global value chains. The Southeast Economic Vision 2050 provides a solid platform for this administration to fully harness these opportunities systematically across the Southeast. We are ready and we'll be back. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister for Trade and Investment. Can we put a hand together for our ladies and gentlemen? Thank you. I'd like to welcome here the Managing Director, Zenith Bank PLC, Dr. Adaro Meji OM, represented here by Barrister Carla Paranto, Regional Director of the bank. The Managing Director of Rural Experience Agency is represented by the Southeast Head, Patrick Fash, Mr. Charles Odi, DG Smith is here with us. Mr. Nana Ude, Board Member Nigeria Economic Summit Group is also here with us. Let me welcome the Southeast Head of Media, Dr. Kim Momo, and Architect Okoro Leonard, representing the Southeast, the Nigerian Building and Rural Research Institute. Let me quickly welcome here, although she's from Ghana, but she's our daughter. We love her. United Nations dynamic public servant, an amazing woman, UN representative to Nigeria. Then welcome here, Ms. Elsie Atafo.
As a true daughter of the soil, I came in my Akwete. And the Akwete was given to me generously by Governor Oti. And I should say Governor Soludo also gave me my first Akwete. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima GCON, Honorable Ministers, especially our Honorable Minister of Regional Development, Engineer Abubakar Momo. Let me recognize our distinguished governors here, especially our host governor, Governor Mba, Governor Oti, Governor Soludo, Governor Wifuru, Governor Uzodima represented here. All our leaders who are here, my very good friend Marco Koye, and let me stand on existing protocols. I've been asked to do a keynote, so permit me, and I was given 15 minutes to do that. I'll try to run through this very, very fast. Good afternoon to you all. Good afternoon to you all. This is not just another stakeholder forum. This is once in a generation planning moment. For the first time in Nigeria's development journey, regional development is being deliberately elevated as a pillar of national development through the federal government's establishment of a dedicated Ministry of Regional Development and strengthening regional development commissions, including the Southeast Development Commission, and their explicit linkage to national economic coordination. I want to commend His Excellency the President, and I also want to commend His Excellency the Vice President for this bold and necessary shift. It signals a recognition that Nigeria's development challenge and opportunity will be won or lost in its regions. Now, as UNDP, we are pleased to contribute because of our long-term experience in this area, supporting governments with investment pipelines, and building systems that keep plans alive across political cycles. Southeast Vision 2050 is not simply a regional plan. It is a chance to prove that Nigeria can plan, Nigeria can finance, and Nigeria can deliver at scale through its regions. Let me try to segue a bit into what the region, why this matters for the region and the opportunities in Southeast. I know a number of people have spoken to that, and I might be preaching to the converted, but permit me to say a few words. Before we speak about planning horizons and institutions, we must be clear about what is at stake. The Southeast is not starting from zero. It is one of Nigeria's most distinctive economic regions, built on enterprise, resilience, reinvestment, and competitiveness. It hosts one of the largest indigenous apprenticeship and mentorship systems in the world, an informal but powerful venture incubation model that has produced generations of manufacturers, generations of traders, and service entrepreneurs. It has one of the highest concentration. Am I using two speakers? Seems a bit loud, but I hope it's fine. It has one of the highest concentration of high net worth individuals in the country, many of whom built wealth through scalable trade and manufacturing and continue to reinvest through diaspora networks. Each state brings complementary strengths. Abia with Abia remains Nigeria's heartbeat of indigenous manufacturing. Anambra anchors industrial production in Newi and through Onitsha, backed by a globally connected diaspora. Enugu, when I met Gavamba yesterday, is an education and diaspora capital hub with strong potential in services, tourism, trade, and clean energy-enabled industry. Imo, strong also in services, hospitality, innovation economy. Ebonyi is positioning as a frontier for agribusiness and solid minerals. So for Nigeria as a whole, the Southeast represents a test case. Can indigenous enterprise be scaled into globally competitive industry? Can informal success be converted into structured and bankable growth? Can regional development become a driver of national productivity? Vision 2050 is the answer to that test. Vision 2050 will succeed if Southeast becomes not just a planning region, but a platform where public policy, private sector capital, and regional enterprise converge to drive Nigeria's next phase of growth. Now, let me now go a bit into what a 25-year regional vision truly entails. What should it entail? A 25-year regional vision is very different undertaking from a 3 to 5 year medium-term development plan. Across the world, we see a consistent pattern. Countries that succeed over long horizons do not just imagine the future. They engineer the path to get there. A credible long-term regional vision must do three things, difficult things, at once. First, it must balance aspiration with realism. Ambition without realism leads to disappointment. Realism without ambition leads to stagnation. The art of long-term planning lies in setting a direction that stretches capacity, while sequencing reforms and investments in a way that institutions can actually absorb. 2, it must outlive political cycle. A 25-year vision will span at least 6 or 7 electoral cycles. Without institutional anchors, it will fragment, stall, or be quietly abandoned. Third, it must translate vision into execution engines, not just sectoral chapters. Long-term plans that succeed are organized around how transformation will actually happen, not just what we want to see change. And we have seen experiences from different countries around that. Now, I've asked also to talk a bit about the world that we are in and the complex space that we find ourselves in. the world Nigeria and its regions must navigate. So as we talk about the 25-year plan, what is the world that we are in? Friends, Nigeria does not plan in isolation. We live in a world of deep uncertainty. Your Excellency, the Vice President, you were in Davos, and I'm sure that you saw what happened there. We live in a world of uncertainties. We live in a world where we see climate crisis is accelerating, whether it's desertification in the north in our country, flooding in the south. We live in a world where we are seeing demographic transformation. By 2050, 1 in every 4 people on earth will be African. Nigeria's population will exceed 400 million within the lifetime of this vision. That youth wealth can become a powerful engine of productivity or a source of deep instability. The world that we are in is also a world where technology is rewriting competitiveness. We're seeing the role of artificial intelligence. Everybody's investing in there. Automation, digital platforms. Nigeria is highly connected, yet the gap between connectivity and productivity remains wide. Regions that fail to close that gap will fall behind. And finally, we live in a world that increasingly minerals and geopolitics intersect. Lithium, cobalt, copper, rare earth are now strategic assets. And we see how everybody's running now to Africa, trying to get a hold of some of these minerals. This is why long-term planning is no longer a luxury, it is a survival strategy. Not only for Southeast, not only for Nigeria, but as the daughter of the soil in Africa, it is also important for the region. So what have we learned? What have we learned? Very quickly. What have we learned? What are the global lessons we've learned across many spaces? And whether it's from Kenya's devolution, and I know Ambassador Kashmina is here, or to Rwanda, Malaysia, South Korea, Canada, Germany, parts of South Africa, and many parts, what have we learned about long-term planning? First of all, long-term plans work when they are built around delivery engines. Successful regions do not organize visions as long lists of sectors. They organize them around transformation engines, clusters of reforms, investments, and institutions that move together. Again, I don't have time to go into everything. I can give my paper later on, so I'm going through this very, very fast. What the implications are for Southeast is that the Vision 2050 must clearly define the engines that will drive transformation. Number 2, institutions matter more than the quality of the plan. Across several successful regions, one lesson is unequivocal. Plans do not deliver, institutions deliver. Whether it's in states here, South Africa's West Cape, Ethiopia's Oromia region, and many other parts of the world, long-term visions are anchored in permanent technical institutions that translate strategy into annual delivery. A vision survives when it's converted into routines. And again, I've talked about a number of them. Number 3, spatial and cluster logic is the backbone of regional transformation. Again, successful regional plans around economic geography, not administrative boundaries. It's very, very important. They identify industrial clusters, logistic corridors, labor markets, innovation hubs, and so on and so forth. Again, what we are hoping is that through this process, a practical step will be to translate this geography into 2 or 3 flagship regional compacts. For example, a manufacturing competitive compact, an agro-industrial compact, an energy for industry compact amongst our states. Number 4, financing and investment architecture determines credibility. Plans that are not financed are not plans, they are aspirations. In practice, credibility comes from everything else that we know, costed investment pipeline and so on. I'm rushing through this and because I'll make the paper available. And then the final lesson is political economy must be managed deliberately. Long-term transformation requires confronting political realities, pressure to spread resources thinly. We must guard against that. Demand for short-term wins and institutional resistance to reforms. Countries that succeed design systems that discipline discretion and protect long-term priorities. So these are some of the global lessons that we have also learned. But Africa's hard lessons. What has gone wrong in our region? What must change? Nigeria today reflects a wider African paradox. Important macroeconomic reforms and investment commitments are underway, yet many households remain economically fragile. Growth without broad-based inclusion does not translate into stability or confidence. This gap between policy progress and liberality explains why many long-term plans lose momentum, not because ambition is lacking, but because plans are not often anchored deeply enough in regional economies, delivery institutions, and investment systems that shape jobs, income, and competitiveness on the ground. Now, these are not failures of leadership. They are systemic lessons, and they matter because they offer us clear guidance for Southeast as it embarks on the Vision 2050. So a few things on this as well. What are some of the African lessons that we must ensure that we take forward? We must move from spending authority to investment leadership. In many African sectors, regions and states play a critical role in administering budget, yet have a limited influence over how investments are structured, are sequenced, and scaled. That's something that we have to keep in mind for Southeast. Infrastructure, and I know it was mentioned earlier on, must serve production, not symbolism. Africa has invested heavily in infrastructure, roads, industrial parks, ports, airports, yet too often, these assets underperform because they are not sufficiently linked to production value chain skills and human systems, reliable and affordable energy, and access to domestic, regional, and global markets. Again, this is an area that we should look into. Sequencing, again, I talked about that. Sequencing economies ahead of politics without excluding anyone. The lesson here is not to choose economics over politics, but to sequence economics first, so inclusion can be sustained. Again, institutions must outlast personalities, and short-term finance limits long-term ambition. So, as I try to wrap up, because I know that we have a lot in the day, there's a lot that we need to take forward. Southeast has a unique opportunity to convert these lessons into advantage with its entrepreneurial base, diaspora capital, industrial clusters, universities, and trading networks. The region is well positioned to become Nigeria's leading platform for strategic investment and trade across many sectors. To seize these opportunities, economics must lead, not to weaken politics, but to strengthen it. And friends, excellencies, we have a short window, Nigeria's reform window. This is very timely, and we must be able to leverage that. Nigeria is currently at a rare and time-bound reform moment. Over the last 18 months, our president and vice president, the leaders of this country have undertaken some of the most far-reaching reforms on the continent of Africa, whether it's on foreign exchange reforms, fuel subsidy, energy sector liberalization, fiscal autonomy, and many more. We must take advantage. The window is now. And the window is also narrowing. With the 2027 elections approaching, the real test of reform is no longer policy announcement, it is visible delivery. Jobs, energy access, productive enterprises, improved services. This is why regions and regional planning matter now. And again, we have the National Development Plan and other processes that are ongoing. And I want to conclude by saying that we have been, as the United Nations Development Program, benefited a lot in partnership with the Southeast Development Commission and our partners here. And I'm going to say a few things as I try to wrap up. For our Southeast partners, since we've been working on some of these things for some time now, I think there are 5 tests that we must all work together to meet as a collective. An institutional test, an economic geography test, a governance test, a financing test, and a learning test. And we want to say that we continue to support you in this endeavor. Now, how are we supporting as the United Nations Development Program, by extension, the United Nations family? We have repositioned our work, not as a project implementer anymore, but truly as a catalyst for transformation through our integrated smart state program. I will not have time to talk about it, but what I wanted to say is to say a very big thank you to all the governments of Southeast for believing that we can no longer work across just implementing projects, but surely ensuring that we can catalyze transformation. So thank you to all our governors, our governor of Abia State, governor of Enugu State, I was with him yesterday, signed the financing agreement, governor of Anambra, I'm seeing governor of Ebonyi next week, and of course also our partnership with Imo is emerging. Let me conclude in closing. How do we move from vision to regional legacy? Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, history will not judge Southeast Vision 2050 by the ambition of its language. It will judge it by what changes on the ground, by the strength of the institutions we build, by the discipline of execution we sustain, and the resilience of the systems we leave behind. A vision of this length demands more than consensus. It demands commitment across political cycles, coordination across states, and confidence to focus where impact can be scaled. The Southeast has the assets. Nigeria has the reform window. What remains is the courage to execute deliberately and consistently. This is not the moment to produce another plan. It is the moment to build a regional legacy. The future will not happen by accident. It will happen by design and by disciplined, cutting-edge execution. Your Excellency, I speak passionately about this because I feel that in 20 years' time, we must not come back again to be developing a plan. We must not let our people be scrambling for and scouting for the crumbs from the table when we are actually the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's how a keynote address is delivered. Thank you. Never a dull moment with Ms. Atafia. Thank you so much. We will soon be getting to our governors, but at this juncture, we'd like to quickly recognize His Royal Majesty, Eze Dr. E.C. Okeke, CFR. He is the Chairman, Imo State Council of Traditional Rulers, and also Chairman, Southeast Council of Traditional Rulers. As we also recognize the ambassador of Kenya to Nigeria, yes. I'm speaking of His Excellency Isaac Parashina. Do I hear your applause for him? He was part of the thematic session on tourism, hospitality, and creative economy yesterday. Thank you for your contributions. This might as well be a good time to remind you that you can keep this conversation going. We have our hashtags there, SEV2050, hashtag Rebuilding Legacy, hashtag Renewed Hope, and other relevant hashtags, so that whatever contribution you leave can be traced, found, and of course used. On that note, we have received another goodwill message. We know this one will happen really swiftly from the Speaker of the Federal House of Assembly, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD, well represented here by represented by the Honorable Professor Julius Iwobere. You're making your way already. We appreciate you, sir, for understanding how tough it is with us at time, which is why you will applaud him now as he makes his way on stage. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank Thank you very much, Your Excellency, our own dear Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, PCON, our dear governors that are here, my colleagues from the National Assembly, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and honorable ministers, including my brother, Abubakar Omo. I'm here to represent Dr. Abbas Tajuddin, Speaker of the 10th House of Representatives. Unfortunately, he's held up somewhere and has asked me to deliver his address. But when I look at the time we have or we don't have, you permit me to deliver the speech to the organizers and just make a brief summary of this original speech. And I think some of the speakers before me have also dealt with some of the questions that Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas covers in his speech. First, he acknowledges the wonderful work being done by the governors of the Southeast and believes that the engine of change begins with a leadership that is focused, that is committed, that has vision and commitment to the people. And this is precisely what the governors are doing. Next, he also argues that in talking about infrastructural change and other technical matters that are critical, we must not fail to carry the people along. Ultimately, development is about the people. It is not about buildings. Those represent growth. Your GDP, GMP per capita, and what have you. But the welfare of the ordinary person is critical to evaluating the progress being made in any society. He remarks that the role played by the legislators in ensuring the fruition, the signing into law of the SABC Act must be acknowledged. From those before the present legislators, people like Emeka who were there, they initiated this, it didn't work. People like Honorable Ngari came in, take it up again, and concluded by people like working with the Deputy Speaker, our own dear brother, Benjamin Kalu, to ensure that this bill became law. And because when people neglect history, they make the mistakes of their forebears and blame it on history. History never repeats itself. People repeat the stupid mistakes of the past and blame it on history. And we must avoid that in the case of the SABC, because our history strengthens us. It gives us commitment. Tajuddin Abbas also commits the House of Representatives, by implication the National Assembly, to continue to work with the Commission in whatever ways necessary to push the goals that are clearly laid out in the Act in terms of promoting not just infrastructural development, but also building a holistic and sustainable environment for economic growth, peace, and progress. I want to identify Tajuddin's speech with the comments made earlier on, that at the end of the day, people will judge us not by the amount of grammar we are able to read out at any occasion, but by the difference we make in the lives of the people, in communities and constituencies, and the legacies that we leave behind, that will enrich the quality of life. I would like to stop at this point and thank the Vice President for taking the time to be with us here. We always admire his commitment to national progress, a true man of vision with a high sense of nation and a sense of mission. And I think it is this kind of leaders that our governors are also emulating, and that is why they are performing wonders. Luckily, these are governors I have known for a long time, so I'm not surprised, I'm not disappointed, and I will let the Speaker know that their performances have been duly acknowledged here. And for the House of Representatives, they can count on us 100% anytime, any day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Julius Inyabere has been on this road for a long time. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is time to listen to our governors, the Excellencies, the men who are driving progress, development in all their states. And we'll kick it off very quickly. Representing the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, the chairman of the Southeast Governors Forum, the governor of Imo State, His Excellency Senator Hope Uzodimma, is the Speaker of the Imo State House of Assembly. I'd like to welcome here Mr. Uche Chike Olembe.
Your Excellency, the Vice President, Your Excellencies, the governors of Abia, Southeast region. Let me start by, please, because of lack of time, I want to stand on protocol already established. So don't forget that we are sitting here is because a man has made it possible for us to come together. Today, we have what we call Development Commission by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So I want us to give him a standing ovation. Give him a standing ovation, the man who has made it possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your Excellencies, your brother, Senator Uzodimma is unavoidable absent. I bring you warm greetings from the government and good people of Imo State. On behalf of His Excellency, the Governor of Imo State, whom I have the honor to represent today, I'm deeply pleased to be part of this historic gathering, the Southeast Vision 2050 Stakeholder Regional Forum. It's not just another meeting. It is a divine moment in our collective journey as a people. It is a deliberate attempt to chart a shared future, anchored on unity, strategic planning, economic resilience, sustainable development for the Southeast region of our great country, Nigeria. Imo State firmly believe in this vision under the leadership of His Excellency, distinguished Senator Hope Uzodimma, the Governor of Imo State. Our administration has consistently pursued policies that align with regional integration, economic diversification, infrastructure renewal, and human capital development. We see Southeast not as a 5 separate entities competing against one another, but as one economic bloc with shared strength, shared history, shared destiny. As legislators, we in the Imo State House of Assembly reaffirm our commitment to providing the necessary legal and institutional support for policies and initiatives that advance regional development and economic cooperation. We stand ready to work with our counterparts across the Southeast to ensure that the Vision 2050 blueprint is not merely aspirational, but actionable, measurable, and impactful. In conclusion, let me commend the leadership of Southeast Development Commission for this bold initiative and thank all stakeholders present for their dedication to the future of our region. History will judge us not by the elements of our plan, but by the courage of our actions. May this forward beginning of a new era, an era where the Southeast speak with one voice, now with one purpose, and move confidently towards future of peace, prosperity, and shared progress. Thank you, and may God bless you all, the leaders of Southeast Region. Thank you.
Thank you too. Right Honorable Chike Olembe, Speaker, Imo State House of Assembly, representing His Excellency, the Governor of Imo State. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, a few days ago, the national grid collapsed. And somebody came on television and said, surely this will not happen in Abia State. Since he became governor, he has touched the lives of the people in the area of road construction, education, health, energy, agriculture, industrial growth, and security. He is the darling of governance in Nigeria. Welcome here, the governor of Abia State, Dr. Alex Chairman Otu.
the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you are giving me sign. What do you want me to do? You want me to use this podium? All right. If you want to promote me, I'm not governor of Enugu State. All right, thank you. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCO. Your Excellency, the good governor, my friend and my brother, Dr. Peter Bach. Your Excellency, the governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Chukwuka Soludo. Your Excellency, the governor of the Ebonyi State, Governor Wifru, the Speaker, the
Imo State House of Assembly representing the Governor of Imo State, the Speaker of the House of Reps, who is here represented by my teacher in the university. I'm beginning that a lot of people will not know, Professor Julius in Hamburg. If you don't mind, I'll use you to reach out to other National Assembly leaders and members who are here. I'd like to use the Honorable Minister for Trade and Investment to reach out to all the ministers that are here and members of the Federal Executive Council. I'd like to use Chief Emeka Wogu, CON, the Chairman of the Southeast Development Commission, to reach out to the management, board members, and everyone who is involved in arranging this sitting today. I'd like to recognize our traditional rulers, our fathers of faith, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm asked to speak on powering industrialization in the Southeast, the case for a regional energy strategy. I have the speech put together, but I'll try and paraphrase and shorten it so that I don't leave you here longer than necessary. I'd like to begin by expressing my profound gratitude to everyone involved in the conception, planning, and the soon takeoff of the Southeast Vision 2050 Regional Stakeholders Forum for the brilliance of the efforts and the diligence in the execution. Special commendations are due to the federal government for spearheading this timely and bold intervention through the Office of the Vice President, the Federal Minister of Regional Development and Southeast Development Commission. May I take a moment to appreciate in a special way the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima DCON, for his resolute dedication to this project and for honoring us with his esteemed presence at this effort-making event. I also want to acknowledge the generous commitments of my colleagues at the Southeast Governors Forum to the success of this grand initiative, which has been put together to bring relevant stakeholders to the table as we collectively set a new 50-year development target for our region. It is fulfilling to observe that this project has secured the buy-in of major players in the public and private sectors in the zone. I'm also impressed that community and religious leaders, centers of learning and development partners are getting involved in the development conversations that efforts like this have engendered. This event, by the quality of debates and interest it has raised over the last few weeks, is already a success. And the reason is simple. The Southeast Vision 2050 has awoken a new consciousness amongst the different social and economic players in the region. Expectedly, the conversation has rightly shifted from the mundane to the sublime. It is no longer about the glory of individual states and communities, but the destiny of the collective. It is interesting to see that after a long run of missed opportunities, we are now turning our attention to the untapped potential that are found in the region and how we can begin to leverage the immense human and material resources across the land to create oceans of opportunities for our people. Naturally, we are an itinerant population. You will find our people all over the world doing great things, adding value to systems that embrace their ingenuity. The truth, however, is that we do not travel around
around the world for the fun of it. We are driven by the promise of new opportunities, the thrill of beating the odds, and the fulfillment that comes from going the whole distance to win. What we hope to achieve with this event and the engagements to follow is to create new streams of opportunities in the region for an army of young graduates, thinkers and innovators, skilled technicians, and the thousands of young people who troop out of this land every day in search of meaning. From where I stand, this program is connected to the evolution of the contemporary economic layouts on account of its orientation. Yet there is more. We have gathered to establish a pattern of engagement that will henceforth drive investment decisions by public and private sector economic agents. The aspiration is to return us to the trajectory set by the vision of our fathers like Dr. Michael Obara and others who had the foresight to build structures and systems that have survived the passage of time and the evolution of technology. The emphasis will not just be on the theories and the dialectics of development, but on the pathway that will see us commit a certain share of our resources as governments and businesses to initiatives that improve the stock of our human capital and physical infrastructural layouts to carry the weight of our dreams. Abia, and Abia in particular, has seen the resurgence of hundreds of businesses that were hitherto moribund. Entrepreneurs who left the city several years ago are returning, and the real estate market. Thank you. And the real estate market is booming as individuals, households, and businesses struggle to reacquire property they once sold off in frustration for a pittance. What have we done differently in the last 2.5 years? Again, it would be simplistic to reduce our answer to just investments in road infrastructure or urban renewal, which are obvious and true. But the more profound way to look at it is to say that government builds private sector confidence by creating an enterprise-friendly environment and governance. It may also interest us to note that the leading private sector player in Abia, and by extension the whole of the Southeast region, is a power infrastructure company called Geometric Power Limited, Abia. It took 20 years of hard work and hundreds of millions of dollars to deliver. And I would like on this note to thank the Vice President who came personally February last year to commission the geometric power. Thank you so much, sir. The good news is that today, not only is Abia fenced area independent and unaffected by whatever happens within the national grid, like the MC has said, the entire district sees more reliable and predictable power supply than most other places in the country. The assurance of steady power supply, far above the national average, the freedom to move without the limitations of back roads and other sources of new infrastructure advantage have helped in resuscitating Abia's industrial tradition with the extensive social and economic benefits that come with it, particularly job creation and the building of an expanded entrepreneurial base. Power is the foundation of industrial growth, and the modern Abia is proof that investments and higher enterprise outputs are functions of steady and predictable power supply. Agreed that it is expensive to generate and distribute electricity for domestic and industrial applications. The high cost in the final analysis is nothing compared to what the whole of society pays for the metaphorical and actual darkness that are guaranteed in the absence of reliable power supply. Over the years, the arguments amongst experts on the Nigerian energy conundrum have centered mostly around the subject of insufficient capital injection. But when you tabulate how much has been committed to this sector in the last 26 years by different administrations and compare the outlay to the results, you will agree with me that the challenge goes beyond money. Yes, one may blame official corruption, but as I have often pointed out, wrong diagnosis arising from simplistic assumptions can only lead us to a false conclusion. Corruption is a major obstacle to our development aspiration, but the real challenge oftentimes are behaviors and cultural tendencies many of us are either not prepared to see or perhaps understate the harm they inflict on the system. Talk about incompetence, for example. What can be more harmful to a system than having a body of incompetent decision makers driving institutional processes? How about the absence of a political will to make the right call? The challenge here is not dissimilar to the setbacks in other national development front plans. But why the energy sector is critical is the simple reason that so much rests on it. At any rate, if we manage to get the energy outlook and pathway to sustainability right, multiple layers of opportunities will come alive. Jobs will be created in tens of billions, and ultimately, the appetite to travel around the world for economic expression and fulfillment will be moderated by the emergence of new opportunities here. In September last year, the Abia State mini-grid regulatory framework was signed into law to expand access to electricity for our people through a mix of conventional and new energy solutions. The overarching goal is to harness every resource at our disposal to extend the marvel of electricity to communities that are either poorly served or underserved. The framework protects investors and shields energy consumers from exploitation. Also last year, we acquired the distribution assets of Interstate Electric that are domiciled in Abia, outside the Abia First Corridor. Thank you. The motivation for the acquisition is clear. We are determined to take our energy destiny in our own hands. Critical to our pursuit of a robust electricity market in Abia is setting up the Abia State Electricity Regulatory Authority as SERA. Last December, precisely on the 24th of December, as SERA took over regulatory responsibility for the electricity market in the state from the National Electricity Regulatory Agency, NEC. So today, energy regulation is handled locally, Effectively, the Abia State government is functionally involved in every layer of electricity value chain in the state. And our focus is not now, but on the long term, while we work on building stability in the short to medium term through investments in the broad spectrum of energy infrastructure, development of industrial relevant skill set, and incubation of strong institutions to drive system-wide sustainability. The long-term target is to set the stage for competent private sector entities to move in and drive the generation, transmission, and distribution layers of the industry. While the government restricts itself to regulatory activities, as I hinted earlier, the private sector will predictably rely on the government to do the heavy lifting through critical social investments and confidence building efforts. The private sector players, when the coast is clear, is sufficiently clear, can then step in to provide multiple layers of services and make decent profits. Nevertheless, I have to quickly sound the alarm bell that the market requires long-term players, not those with their eyes on short-term profits. Coming now to the region with its vast array of resources and the potential to attain energy sufficiency in the medium to long term, my recommendation will be the development of a broad energy industry strategy anchored on three connected approaches, namely resource identification and optimization, sustained investments in critical energy infrastructure, and adoption of the right market outlook. At the center of this model should be value creation, customer satisfaction, and fair deal for every stakeholder group. At the moment, we know that Imo State holds about the largest reserve of natural gas in West Africa, with experts estimating that the size will be in trillions of cubic feet. In Abia, Imo, and Anambra, you'll find significant crude oil deposits. And here in Enugu and nearby Ebonyi State, large untapped deposits of coal exist. We also know that this region has extensive capacity for industrial energy production using solar vehicles, hydropower resources, and biomass. It has also been established that significant but untapped natural gas deposits exist in the Opa West local government area of Abia State, especially around Owaza, where the Abia Industrial and Innovation Park is located. Evidently, we have enough resources to drive a comprehensive energy plan with a view to achieving optimal industrial output. At any rate, we also know that potential and reality are often worlds apart. It then follows that if the power resource potential of the region is to be fully harnessed, a deliberate plan must be put in place to make that happen. As I had earlier hinted, not much shall be achieved by just talking about the prospects, because talk, as they say, is cheap. What will help us instead is to undertake the building of a regional energy framework that prioritizes the development of an accurate resource dossier, which shall then be used as the foundation for holistic energy policy development and implementation. Other front lines of interconnected needs include technology acquisition, human resource development, partnerships, especially with the federal government and agencies, and international investment groups. These subsets of commitments within the energy resources identification and optimization outlook are not complex, but will require serious level of diligence and sincerity on the part of the participating shareholders to more fundamentally an understanding of the entire value chain by the relevant actors will be necessary to guarantee project sustainability, as nothing should be left to chance. This is where the role of the private sector will be most prominent with respect to capital inflows, competence-based recruitment, and focus on driving stakeholder value across the entire spectrum. To make an accurate prediction, but I'm optimistic that if we play it right, the region could generate and successfully distribute between 10,000 and 15,000 megawatts of electricity over the next decade. Although I brought in elements of investments in the last section, I would like to talk about the importance of continuous investments in the energy sector with respect to infrastructure expansion and restoration, technology deployment and upgrades, and all other layers of support required to keep the system in continuous operation across the front lines of generation, transmission, and distribution. From power plants to overhead lines and towers, cables and transformers, to substations, feeders, and electricity meters, extensive financial commitments are required to initiate, expand, and sustain energy distribution systems across and within communities for domestic and industrial uses. The amount of funds required to change the energy landscape in the region will certainly not come from a single source. While my preferred model is to have governments step in to de-risk the entire outlay by providing institutional guarantees as we have done in Umuahia ring-fence zone. It is, however, important to add that as soon as system stability is assured, the government must quickly divest and let forward-looking investors move in and run the venture as a going concern. The prospect of orderly transition would boost the confidence of would-be investors and then create a community-wide awareness that electricity is a service that costs money to produce. This cost must be borne by the end users who are expected to pay market-determined rates that take cognizance of the production cost, expected shareholder returns, and the average consumer willingness to pay. Agreed that long-term investments will be driven in the main by the potential and actual profit prospect per unit of outlay. It is, however, obligatory that I re-emphasize my earlier position that the sector is not one for those with an eye on quick returns. What is, however, guaranteed is that under a stable regulatory and effective governance framework, as we are now proposing, those who invest will not only reap good returns in the long run, the value of their investments over time will more than compensate for the initial commitments. This is therefore a formal invitation to individuals and businesses with the resources to consider investing in the multiple value chains in the energy ecosystem for reasons of the extensive social and economic benefits. Let me just jump and go straight to my conclusive comments. There are a few more things I would like to say as I conclude. The first is to acknowledge that this event is coming at the right time. And I'm impressed that every relevant sector has been factored into the debate on what should be our priority as our people over the next 50 years. As I said in my lecture last week at the National Defense College in Abuja, the only way to drive institutional success in the new age of complex changes and fluid dynamics is to tie long-term expectations with everyday execution. What this demands is strategic leadership, and no less is required in driving the energy system strategy for the Southeast region. The next point of interest for me is to express sincere satisfaction with the development orientation of the Southeast leaders. This has been said here before. I understand that my assessment may be biased, considering that I am involved, but that is the common verdict of several observers who are not governors nor close to the corridors of power. Every state in the region, without exception, is witnessing great changes in its infrastructure and social services landscape. As a body of leaders, the Governors Forum in the region has united strongly against insecurity. You can see the impact in the peace and tranquility witnessed across several communities during the last Christmas celebration. Now, my promise from this podium is that we shall continue to prioritize collaboration over competition, because this is our land. And the only rational thing to do is to bring development to our people. Nothing more, nothing less. Lastly, I would like to assure us that proposals made here shall be considered painstakingly, because the interconnectedness of the critical development nodes. Power is connected to industrialization, as we have exhaustively explained, but it is also connected to education, it's connected to health, security, and all other front lines of our lives in the age of technology and new consumer orientation. The expectation is that we shall make it a priority as leaders to see that the jinx of poor electricity supply is finally broken in the region. In Abia, I have already made arrangements to buy and wheel power to Umuahia from Geometric. This excess power of somewhere between 80 and 90 megawatts to the national grid, we will wheel that power to Umuahia and give Umuahia reliable power supply. I also hold the view that there are multiple opportunities for collaboration, cooperation, and resource sharing. Hence, we get on the regional energy master plan. Now, what I mean by this is that it took Geometric 20 years to produce first power. So, my brother Peter does not have to spend 20 years to generate electricity in Enugu. We can expand Geometric and wheel electricity to Enugu. And of course, Imo is at our backyard. Once you go through Werenta, you're already in Imo. So it is expandable. we can generate 1,000 megawatts from that 141 megawatts installed capacity today. All you need to do is to add gas turbines, and that's it, because the gas pipelines have been laid. It also has to be noted that there is no better way to set our people free from the limitations of poverty, unemployment, and economic desperation than by building an energy system framework that is enterprise-focused in outlook, service-driven in operations, and resilient to shock in structure. Nature has done its part by endowing us with the resources to bring forth light. Our long-term survival beyond the push to run off to far-flung corners of the world in search of opportunities is to create our own opportunities right here. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if I had started discussions because I don't have the solution, this is just debate. If we had started the debate, then we would have succeeded. Thank you very much for listening. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Asking you to make it louder will be an overkill. You've done that already, but please give it up once again for the governor of Abia State, His Excellency Dr. Alex Oti, OFR. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, sir. We shall move on really swiftly. I know his brother governors are ready to take the stage as well, which is why I'd like to repeat something I believe will continue to feature in all the speeches we shall hear this afternoon. He said, collaboration over competition. Cooperation over competition. If you remember what the acronym TEAM stands for, that's together, everyone achieves more. And that's what this is about. And we thank you again, the NCDC. We thank the President for for bringing hope to the Southeast region. Moving on very quickly. We would like to quickly recognize, before we invite the next governor, a lady who probably needs no introduction. She has always graced our screens. She is an award-winning Nollywood actress and filmmaker. Please welcome with resounding applause, Mrs. Stephanie Okereke-Linus. Stephanie, we see you. Good to have you here. Just as we'd like to recognize the Bishop of the Upper Catholic Diocese, Bishop Ezra Bafo. Yes, thank you very much. I have told my amazing co-compare to carry on with introducing, bringing up the governors. But being the amazing man he says, no, you carry on with the next. So I have a citation here, which I'll quickly read. Well, not a citation, just a brief introduction. And we ended by saying the solution is here. So you have an idea who I'm about to speak about. Professor Soludo is a first-class. You'll have ample time for that. He's a first-class economist and an authority on the subject of the Stakeholder Forum, planning. He chaired the drafting of Nigeria's National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy needs, which saw GDP growth averaging 7 to 8% per annum between 2003 and 2007, and was the basis for Nigeria's debt relief. Planned and delivered historic banking and financial reforms that gave Nigeria a new banking and financial system, and he was celebrated by the Financial Times London and Euromoney as the best central bank governor in the world, among over 160 of such awards. That deserves applause. Do I hear it? He chaired the drafting of the Financial System Strategy 2020, envisioned, planned, and founded the Africa Finance Corporation. He reviewed and advised on several of Nigeria's development plans, shared Anambra's Vision 2070, a 50-year development plan. He was once the chairman of Planning and Strategy Committee of Ohaneze Ndibo Worldwide. He was previously consultant to 21 international financial and development institutions and has over 200 academic publications to his credit. As Governor of Anambra, he has been in a haste to lay the foundation for the state's Vision 2070. The results in the 3 years plus have earned him dozens of national and international awards, and the people of Anambra recently re-elected him with an unprecedented 73% of the votes. Very much in order. The world previously knew Professor Soludo as a bold thinker and transformer, but in Anambra, they simply acknowledge that solution is here. On that note, I'd like to invite for his remarks the Governor of Anambra State, Professor Chukwuma Charles Soludo, CFR. Yes. Thank you for being here, Your Excellency. The stage is all yours. You have our attention. And we know the recurring decimal will always be collaboration as opposed to competition. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I've got 50 pages of paper to deliver. So I'm going to speak until 7 p.m. today, so get your pillow. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON. Thank you and welcome to the Southeast. I know my landlord, my brother governor, will do that more adequately, but just to say welcome home. Your Excellencies, the host governor, my brother, governor from Abia, Ebonyi, the Imo State, and all the other excellencies here. The president of Ohaneze Ndibo Worldwide, I have to acknowledge that. That's our regular honorable ministers, members of the National Assembly, our law, spiritual and temporal, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I have been assigned, I can say, 2 topics. The first one I prepared, I have quite about almost 20 slides. The second one I saw on arrival here, Enterprise, Innovation and Diaspora Capital and Drivers of a Competitive Southeast. But after listening to all the presentations today, and having been through this road several times, and given the length of time already spent here today, I'm not going to waste more of your time. I will come down to a few specific nuggets just to re-emphasize a few things and just to keep us firmly focused on why we are here and the kind of output and plan that we expect. I want to particularly thank Elsie, UNDP, for that keynote address. That was wonderful. And I want to ask SADC, Mark and his team, to please pay attention to that particular keynote address, among others, and what my brother Governor Abia has given, the Imo, and so on, several of the presentations, the ministers who spoke, and so on and so forth. Please take them to heart. Very, very important nuggets there. I have come. First is goodwill message. To thank SADC for organizing this. And second, to thank His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu for finally giving to Ndi Igbo what we had clamored for decades, a Southeast Development Commission. It can appropriately be described as Ogogoa Ndi Igbo for this particular singular act. Just the first of it, we thank you immensely. And I'm very glad also to thank, I'm happy to thank also my colleague governors for everyone standing firm and together. A bold statement has been made today, unlike what happened in the past. And I said it because I have gone through this before. I was once the chairman of Planning and Strategy Committee of Ohaneze Ndi Igbo, and we tried to do this. I had a committee of about 121 professionals from the Southeast in my committee, and we set out to produce some kind of a planning framework. But you know what? The Southeast governors could not meet even for us to present what we had produced. Today, therefore, is history in the making. I don't think there is any time in our history where the governors are more united with a common vision that we must sing a new song. Thank you very much, my colleagues. For me, as a product of the former East Central State, the current Southeast region, or simply the former East Central State after the Civil War. I'm a product of that. I had my primary school in Ebonyi, the current Ebonyi now. It wasn't an Ebonyi state. I was taught by everyone. All my teachers come from the current 5 Southeast states. My primary 1, Mr. Agowa from the current Imo. Primary 2, Mr. Odo from the current Ebonyi. Primary 3, Mrs. Mebrim, now Dr. Mrs. Mebrim, she's still alive, from Imo. Now primary 4, Mr. Ago from Udi, from the current Enugu. Primary 5 from Mr. Ngokwa from Ngwa, the current Abia. And primary 6, Chukwulozie from the current Anambra. And my principal, my headmaster, was Mr. Aichineke from Ihiala, who was headmaster in Ebonyi. So, as a product of one region in my own eyes, as a child of former East Central State, I see one region with one agenda. One region, one agenda. And so, what I have chosen to do in a few minutes is for Mark and the team drafting this plan. I've actually just scribbled it. Planning for impact, mega trends and connecting the dots. Mega trends and connecting the dots. This is supposed to be a prelude to a planning, to producing a plan. And therefore, what we'll just do is to draw your attention to quite a few, just for emphasis. Several speakers have alluded to them. For the first point, there have been many plans, and there are still many plans. Is this going to be just another plan? You have the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. You have Renewed Hope Development Plan that will come, I think, 2026 to 2030. Every state has at least a plan. In Anambra, I chair the development of Vision 2070. We're talking about 2050 here. We have a 50-year development plan, and we have our own agenda spanning the duration of my tenure. I'm sure every state, I just read that Abia has a 25-year plan. I'm sure Enugu, Imo, Ebonyi all have one plan or the other. So the question then is, what will be the value added of this regional plan on top of the myriad of plans. What's going to be new? What's going to be different? Is this plan the one that will tell Enugu State how to fix Ovogo? I don't know. And so on and so forth. So, I mean, I'm just using that as an example. We have a lot of regional plans. I know the Dawn Commission, the NDDC is there. And I don't know any governor that bases his annual budget on the regional plans that we have had all over. Even the federal government, I would dare to say, several of the national development plans that I have seen, rarely do you have the federal government referencing those plans in the annual budgets. Not there. I'm just bringing us back to realism. And that's a point that Elsie did make about political cycles and the nature of planning in a democratic context. And so, why haven't these plans worked? That's a question that the drafting committee must answer. And as a starting point, and my answer, short answer, is that technocrats often mistakenly believe that you can take politics out of policy. You plan for everybody and invariant to political cycles, and then you come back and say they didn't sustain that. That was lack of continuity. And let me say, Mark and your colleagues, that it is easier to build regional consensus about regional physical and infrastructure planning than policies. We all have ours, and I would dare to say that every government, even when the change is within the same political party, you will find wide variations in policy direction. Take America, for example. Trump has literally opened most of the things that Democrats did. And somebody will say, oh, lack of continuity, and so on. And of course, that's the nature of politics. People contest for elections with their own agenda, with which they bargain with the people and negotiate with the people, and they come into office to execute them. That somebody sat in one room and designed stuff can become some guide. And therefore I ask, let us build all of this in the planning framework. Focus, focus, focus for impact. The kind of plan that will require will be broadly indicative rather than prescriptive. This planning will be a framework that focuses on de-risking investment in shared regional public goods. And this is where I ask you to focus. The kind of plan that will de-risk investments in shared regional public goods. And I will suggest a KISS framework. Keep it simple, stupid. Mark and colleagues, for measurable impact, the regional plan should add value to the various state and local government plans and not pretend to write a new plan which will largely decorate the shelves. I will urge you, as you write the plans, to focus at least 70% on what the Southeast Development Commission can deliver. What the Southeast Development Commission can deliver, and 30% perhaps on the miscellaneous as indicative guidance to states and local governments. Avoid the mistakes of the walls of NDDCs of this world, with their apologies to them, but I saw that it just went into all manner of micro interventions, boreholes, building, fencing, schools, doing 1 kilometer to one politician's house or the other, and so on and so forth. Before you know it, you just derail and lose focus. And so for me, therefore, the question is, at the end of this plan, how would Ndi Igbo evaluate the usefulness and impact of SEDC and this plan? For me, Southeast has gone through 2 major wars. Nigeria, Biafra, and Civil War, 1967 to 70, and more recently, an internal war of self-destruction that has been on since 2021. After the Civil War, there was a promise of rehabilitation and reconstruction. But ladies and gentlemen, this is yet to happen. The Second War has imposed massive tax on production and massive financial and human capital flight from the region and destruction of infrastructure. Southeast going forward, and this plan coming timely, almost like in a post-war reconstruction mode. The 50-something years promise that never happened, and with the current one, with the governors working tirelessly to root out the criminals from our bushes and our streets, that our people had the best Christmas ever in this season, we are now in a post-war reconstruction mode. And therefore, SADC must see itself as the instrument for execution of the equivalent, and this is my major proposal, for the execution of the equivalent of a Marshall Plan for the Southeast. What is a Marshall Plan? The Marshall Plan by the United States of America, named the European Recovery Plan, 1948 to 51, was a special reconstruction plan for 16 West European nations, including Germany. And as at 2024, it was estimated that that particular intervention by the US to reconstruct Europe was the equivalent of over $100 billion. And it aimed at rebuilding a war-torn Europe, especially its infrastructure and industry. And so, for this plan, focus, focus, focus. It should be, and roundly so, be Nigeria's Marshall Plan for the Southeast. That is the way I say it, and that's what it has to be impactful, to be measurable, and for us to deliver tangible results. And if you ask me, this plan should focus not on everything, because I've seen all manner of long lists of it. Before you know, it becomes just another kind of plan, like Anambra's Vision 2017 document, or the Abia 25-year plan, or the other plans of the other states. No. Keep it simple, focused on few key deliverables. And I suggest three major planks of this. A, regional security framework and funding, including regional command and control center. Maybe we'll have this in Enugu here, as well as super drones to penetrate our forests, and so on and so forth. Southeast has suffered avoidable monumental losses due to self-inflicted insecurity and needs to change. For the first time in 5 years, well, finally, Onitsha main market is now open on Mondays. And I had to shop there on Monday. Number two, security. That's the full architecture on its own. Because as man and as the private sector, MDUBA told us, peace, security is the foundation for everything else to happen. So we must invest in regional security. Regional security. Number two is super interstate infrastructure. Here, I say regional railways and regional highways connecting major cities and state capitals. Regional railways and highways connecting major cities and state capitals. Then regional gas pipelines through power plants and river seaports, river or stroke seaports. When Mr. President visited Anambra on 8 May 2025, among other things, I requested for the inclusion of the Southeast in the National Rail and Gas Master Plan, as well as dredging of River Niger for the Onitsha River Port to become operational. And he approved. He approved there on the spot. Now SEDC should follow up and make this happen soon. And the third pillar is the institutional framework to get this for coordination and collaboration, for peer learning and review based upon best practices and group action, with the SEDC or the Southeast Governors Forum, or perhaps some kind of a quasi-centralized political union of the 5 states to coordinate and collaborate. This is a conversation that the governors must have. In other words, put it simply, in today's world of technology, where you have some of these things going, just ask GPT. Ask it what is it that it will take for Southeast to move. Guess what? Listed just 3. ChatGPT. What is it? It said the 3 big changes that will genuinely flip the Southeast into a developed competitive region within a generation are, quote, regional economic integration and the integration of large common infrastructure, security and rule of law reset, and industrial and skills re-engineering from trading to making, end of quote. That's ChatGPT. So the plan is there. Just let us get it happen. So, from an economic point of view, the Southeast is already beyond the common market. It is a part of what we call in economics an economic and monetary union called Nigeria. An economic and monetary union is where you have a common currency, elimination of tariffs and trade barriers, free movement of goods and persons, common standards imposed by Standard Organization of Nigeria and NAFDAC, etc. When you have this, you already have a common market. But if you know, in our respective states, even in our respective states, there are places within the states that are not integrated because of lack of infrastructure to those places. We already have free movement of goods and persons across borders in the Southeast. So it is, economically speaking, a common market. But what is missing is a robust agenda to greatly lower the intrastate and intra-regional transaction costs and costs of doing business through massive infrastructure transformation and security cum rule of law. So give us this plan to deliver the Marshall Plan equivalent for the Southeast, and within 5 years, and in 25 years' time, 2050, Southeast will become Nigeria's sustainable economic powerhouse. There is a full section where I talk about connecting the dots, because Southeast is not an island. Economically speaking, the Southeast is an insignificant part of the national and global economy. Our wealth is largely outside of the Southeast, sadly. The world won't adjust to us. Rather, we will be largely impacted by the trends elsewhere, or we opportunistically position to take advantage of the headwinds around the world. So, I will suggest to you that as you do this plan, part of what will become guidance to us as we do in terms of spatial planning, whether we're what I mean spatial, I mean S-P-A-T-I, I don't know how is that spatial or spatial or however you call it. But all I know is I'm talking about the economic geography, as it were. Where will things place and so on and so forth. You've got to look at the headwinds and the drawbacks around the world. We must, as a matter of fact, we need to do that, and I've listed quite about 9 of them, and I don't need to list them. You will know them. For example, for starters, and I repeat what else it did say about being focused in terms of objectives. Being measurable and achievable goals by balancing grandiose aspirations with realism. Informed by existing structural bottlenecks that limit scalability and investment as well as rigorous assessment of the emerging opportunities. This we can speak about for hours. For example, I saw something put out there, 2050 you'll have a $1 trillion economy. Please, let's avoid those kind of grandiose numbers. Keep it real. For example, I will ask, this is a bit of what I know and just a very little about, and that is doing economic growth accounting framework that have informed the $1 trillion whatever thing. But let's keep this one real and keep it simple. I have outlined all those mega trends, 12 of them, and so on and so forth. But let me end by reiterating 1 or 2 points. First, on financing. Let's be clear. This plan that you are drawing will largely be funded by the federal government and the private sector. Let's be clear about it. It is the Marshall Plan and should be the Marshall Plan for the Southeast. It should be the Marshall Plan for the Southeast. We're expecting dedicated, focused, quantum resource in a short period of time. And we are hoping, Mr. President, before you leave office in 2031, the Southeast would have received full funding for its Marshall Plan. We should receive the full funding for the Marshall Plan. The European Marshall Plan was executed over how many? 1948 to 1951, maybe a 4-year period. So the next one, we expect that over the next 5 years, the full funding amounting to trillions or so will pour into the Southeast from the federal government. Of course, there are others about mixed financing. You asked me to talk about diaspora finance and all of those. I'm glad you have set up the equivalent of Anambra Development and Investment Commission Corporation and so on at the regional level to mobilize the other funding, stop green funds and so on and so forth. But on our part as governors, we also collaborate and cooperate. We are the owners. We are the beneficiaries. For example, if you are doing your rail line tomorrow, the right of way, the states will have to provide the right of way. In Anambra, we hired the CPCS of Canada and we've developed an internal rail master plan for Anambra, but now we are waiting for the funding, $1.something billion US, and I hope you are coming with that. We have other ways that we collaborate through strategic partnerships. States were doing dualizing highways that link to borders. If I take mine, I have taken one now from Abia to Uga to Akokwa, and the governor of Imo is taking it from there going down. Strategically, if we link up and have the ones getting to Abia, I hope it takes over. The one getting to Enugu, it takes over from there. And so within a short period of time, we can collaborate and coordinate to build highways across the entire Southeast without waiting for anybody. We need to come together. We need to come together. And so the Southeast Governors Forum will be very, very instrumental in giving life to this program. But like I always say, not grammar again. I have seen many of these plans. Dozens, less than 10% with impact. This one must not be another one. This is an agenda with a deadline, and speed is of essence. Give us the Marshall Plan for the Southeast, not too much grammar, no fancy graphs and charts or grandiose feel-good targets. What will a question most people in the Southeast are asking is, when will the rail line crisscross the Southeast? When will the gas pipeline crisscross the Southeast? When are we enabled, of course, with the power thing now being taken off the exclusive legislative list, I think all the states are working hard together. But we are looking forward to being able to synergize and pool resources together to develop regional frameworks. I think in conclusion, once you can get these things to happen, get one done. Don't give us 500-page plan. Give us a rail line. Don't give us 300-page plan. Give us a gas pipeline. Give us the highways. Fix the federal motor highways around Southeast. Invest in our security regional wide. And then that's the only way the over 35 million Igbo will feel that this particular opportunity is not wasted. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Let's keep the applause going. He's making his way on stage. Thank you very much. We all heard it. In a few years, the Southwest will become Nigeria's sustainable economic powerhouse. And yes, we are optimistic about that. We now go from another state to the south of the nation as I invite from another state to the south of the nation as I invite a man whose leadership continues to deepen the foundations of development and unity in Abia State. Yes, this is the bar. He's making it the last day. We're speaking of His Excellency, the Governor of Abia State, Right Honorable Francis Owen and Wayford. Do I hear your applause? Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency, distinguished Senator Kashim Shettim, the host governor of this great event, the Governor of Enugu State, distinguished Excellencies, the governors from the southeastern Nigeria, let me stand on the protocol well established. It is my pleasure, and I felt very honored to address this historic Southeast Vision 2050 Regional Stakeholders Forum, apparently first of its kind. I commend the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, who is ably represented in this great occasion by our dear brother, friend, a leader, an icon, the Vice President Kashim Shettima, GCON. And I also commend the Managing Director and CEO for the Southeast Development Commission and members of the Southeast Development Commission for creating a platform that moves our discourse beyond diagnosis to solution, and truly solutions grounded in evidence, coordinated action, and shared commitment to prosperity of our dear region. This may address distinguished ladies and gentlemen to us, and to me this afternoon advances a regional development strategy anchored on agriculture and solid mineral as twin drivers of value-added industrialization. Drawing on development economics, regional integration theory, and empirical lessons from the inter-industrializing economics, this address argues that Southeast can achieve food security, employment generation, and export competitiveness by raising productivity, deepening value chains, investing in shared infrastructure and energy, building skill and innovation system, and mobilizing patient capital through public and private partnership. The address also proposed actionable policy instruments, institutional arrangement, and safeguard for sustainable and inclusion under the Southeast Vision 2050 framework. The rationale for the regional strategy. The Southeast entrepreneurial culture, its dense human capital and resource endowment position the region for accelerated transformation. Sadly, fragmentations of markets and policies, under-industrializations and exposures to climate and microeconomic shocks constrains regions' growth. Not a sit-at-home order that are gradually phasing out as many apologetic have misconstrued. I think these are the reasons this discourse is apt and timely. The moment therefore called for a regional compass, one that aligns agriculture and solid mineral. I'm talking about my area of strength as the governor of Ebonyi State. With manufacturing, logistics, and services for the region's best interests, I am very happy that governors are here because analytical framework structure transformation and regional industrial policies begins and stop on their table. These structural transformations entails locating labor and capitals from low productivity activities to high productivity manufacturing and modern services. This will ensure productivity growth through technology adoption and scale. Also, value addition via processing and manufacturing cluster, market integrations with efficient logistics and standards, institutions and coordinations that reduce uncertainty and transaction costs, inclusions and sustainability to ensure political and social durability are a very critical pathway. Suffice it then to say that an agro and solid minerals-led pathway aligned with enabling backward and forward leakage across the regional economy. How do we feed the Southeast? How do we feed the Southeast in the national in question? These are the questions that only Ebonyi can answer. With empirical context and available regional statistics and data, agriculture remains a major employer in the Southeast, engaging an estimated 30 to 40% of the regional labor force, yet contributing a disproportionately lower share to regional GDP due to low productivities and limited processing facilities. Post-harvesting losses in staples such as rice, cassava, fruit, and vegetable are estimated to range between 20 to 45%, reflecting gaps in storage, processing, and logistics. These losses represent foregone incomes, wasted water and energy, and the higher food prices for households. This is the narrative Ebonyi, under my watch, has fought against. We have reactivated various agencies, ADA, Agricultural Land Development Agency, Ebonyi State Agricultural Development Program, because the GMD Zenith Bank, GMD UBA Bank talks about what we can do for the corporate organization. We have a land, we have a programs, and we have prepared our land for your investment. Procure tractors and other farm implements. This has become a major boost to agriculture in Ebonyi State, for instance. We are deliberate in revamping agriculture. This step is informing by our understanding that food demand in the Southeast is rising rapidly due to the population growth, urbanization, and changing diets. Therefore, without deliberate investment in productivities and agro-processing, the region risks deepening food import dependency and inflationary pressure. Conversely, closing yield gaps and processing deficits could generate hundreds of thousands of jobs across farming, logistics, packaging, and manufacturing. The Abakaliki rice, which you all know, has undergone serious modernization, including its management of a whole. The hard truth is that the region can comfortably feed herself independent of other regions. This is not to argue against state independence, not at all. The Southeast agroecology supports rice, cassava, yam, maize, oil palm, vegetable, fruits, poultry, aquaculture, and livestock. And the Ebonyi State offers a practical case study in leveraging cooperative advantage through targeted investment in irrigations, which is being worked on by our dear government. Improved seedling, rural access roads covering over 2,000 kilometers, crisscrossing the 13 local government area, has been revitalized. The revival and the improvement of our rice mills capacity, Ebonyi has strengthened its position as a rice-producing hub. Demonstrating how hub national policy focus can crowd in private processors and traders. We, with the Ebonyi experiments successfully conducted, it means when government de-risk productions through infrastructure and extension services, the people expand with processing, storage, and market integration. This is why everyone is talking about Abakaliki rice today, from 1940. More so, priority interventions to drive this vision must include land administration reform, improved seed system, fertilizer blending tailored to soil profiles, mechanizations and irrigation, extension services enhanced. Evidence suggests that even modest productivity gains of 20 to 30% can significantly lower food price and raise rural incomes when combined with access to markets. The case of Ada and Ebadet mentioned earlier, a step we have taken and believe strongly it should be mass poured across the region. As leaders, we must recognize that food security is inseparable from processing capacity. And so clustered agro-industrial parks should be created. We are making frantic efforts to fully automate the Israel of farm, possibly before we draw the curtains of our first term in office. This, if finally commenced and completed, we process agro-value chain, cassava starch and ethanol plants, oil palm refinery, and oleochemicals, fruits and vegetables cold chain, feed mill, hatchery, and protein processing facilities. We are also linking communities geographically and politically, sociologically connected, kith and kin in Oju local government area of Benue State. There we are doing about 210-meter bridge linking us to Oju local government area for Ebonyi State. The integration of rice productions with mining, packaging, and the regional distributions illustrates how value chain coordination multiply employment and fiscal revenue. I recommend this Ebonyi model to all of us in this region. In the area of solid mineral, another edge of the regions as it actualized its vision 2050 is the huge deposit of solid mineral. The Southeast hosts commercially viable deposit of lead, zinc, limestone, gemstone, gypsum, salt, granite, and other industrial minerals. Naturally or nationally, the solid mineral sector contributes less than 1% of the GDP, despite Nigeria's vast reserves. This highlights an enormous opportunity for value creations through formalization and downstream processing. For the Southeast, mineral links to constructions and agro inputs are particularly strategic. This is what we have done in Ebonyi State. Ebonyi State is richly endowed with lead, zinc, limestone, soil, and granite. Historically, these resources were extracted in artisanal and informal ways, thus yielding limited public revenue and significantly environmental risk. Under investor screening, community engagement, and environmental standards, with the explicit goal of linking extractions to local processing. This is our wish, but temporarily encumbered, given that licensing is an exclusive preserved of the federal government, who is responsible for giving license to extractors. Our roadmap is anchored on the strategic vision of establishing at least a cement factory for the state once the Nkalegu cement factory is now rested. This will be done before we draw the curtain of our second term in 2021 by the special grace of God. We are actualizing this vision because of our proximity to cement raw materials, limestone and gypsum. Additionally, we are working towards processing lead, zinc, to feed metal fabrications and salt resources to supply food processing and chemical industries. This approach transforms minerals from isolated extraction points into anchors of industrial ecosystem. Of course, it is in public domain that local beneficiation, crushing, mining, smelting, and fabrications all retains values and skills within the region. So when construction materials are sourced locally, infrastructure costs fall, project delivering accelerated, and physical multipliers rise. Roads, housing estates, industrial park, and social infrastructure built with regional inputs reinforce a virtuous cycle of demand, employment, and reinvestment. These are factors we must collaboratively leverage on. Industrialization requires reliable power and efficient logistics. And I'm happy my dear brother and governor of Abia State has dealt with that very, very dearly. And I appreciate you. I will still consult you on what to do when it comes to power in my dear state. A regional plan should diversify energy, gas, solar, rehabilitations, roads, warehouses, and expand the brown band to enable smart agriculture and advanced manufacturing. To ensure the success of this vision, we must also understand that transformation is purpose-driven, and it must include alignment with the priority value chain, dual trainings and apprenticeship, innovation hubs in agri-tech, material sciences, and manufacturing, and dedicated financing windows for youth and women-led enterprises. As government, we must catalyze, not crowd out, private investment. How? We must continue to include blended finance, development guarantees for SMEs, regional project preparations facilities, diaspora capital mobilizations, and predictable regulation in our various states' agenda. This is because a strengthened regional coordinations mechanism must prioritize projects, harmonize policies, and ensure accountability. Vision 2050, we must be bold and courageous enough to admit required measurable targets, transparent dashboards, independent evaluation, and adaptive learning to correct and scale what works. In conclusion, distinguished stakeholders, Vision 2050 must be more than an aspirational timeline like we had in Vision 2020. It must become a blending regional commitment anchored in policy continuity, measurable targets, and collective accountability across various sectors, even the religious actors in our region. I say this because feeding and building the Southeast through agro and soil-led mineral-led industrialization is not an abstract ideal. It is an achievable development pathway grounded in our land, our resources, and our people. Therefore, from the rice field of Ebonyi State to the oil palm belt of the Southeast, from our quarries and mineral deposits to our construction sites and other places, the message is clear, and it should be re-echoed at all times that what we produce, we must process. What we extract, we must industrialize, and what we build, we must sustain. Recommendation, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As Governor of Ebonyi State Southeast Geopolitical Zone, I hereby affirmed a Vision 2050 regional pledge on behalf of the government of Ebonyi State to prioritize agriculture and solid minerals as strategic input for industrial growth, not as ends in themselves. To invest in shared regional infrastructure, energy transport, logistics, and digital systems that lower costs and rise competitiveness. To place the youth, women, and skill development at the center of our industrial strategy. To uphold environmental stewardship, community participations, and social inclusion as non-negotiable pillar of development. To work with sister states, the private sector, academia, media, and development partners to industrialize regional coordination beyond political circle. I call on fellow governors of the southeastern Nigeria, especially many are here, legislators, traditional institutions, our leaders, investors, scholars, and the other enterprising youths to adopt this pledge not as a rhetoric, but as a regional development compass. And if we act with unity of purpose, discipline of policy, and courage of execution, the Southeast will, by 2050, stand as a region that feeds itself, build with its own resources, employ its youth, and compete confidently with Nigeria and the global economy. Thank you very much.
What we're doing here today. Can we give him another round of applause, please? I'd like to welcome Honorable Buba, which is also former staff staff to the government of Abia State, and Honorable Rojo, which is Nairobi Junior, member Abia State House of the Senate. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have traveled to 4 states on the southeast. It's not important, we begin to head home. And home is here. You know, the governor of the state don't mind the noise around the government. If the man has given them 800 kilometers of road, over 260 farm estates, smart schools, combined vision with some
very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. The day is fast spent. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, distinguished Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON. Your Excellency, I warmly welcome you to what can be described also as your home state. Your Excellency has continually identified with us, not just as a state, but also as a region. You have not only identified with us in form, look at the way you are dressed, showing that you are one of us. You have also identified with us in substance. You've shown dedication, you've shown commitment to anything that concerns the Southeast. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the Governor of Ebonyi State, Right Honorable Francis Mwifuru. Your Excellency, the Governor of Anambra State, Professor Chukwuma C. Soludo. Your Excellency, the Governor of Abia State, Dr. Alex Oti. Your Excellency, the Governor of Imo State, ably represented by the Speaker of Imo State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Chike Olembe. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by the Leader of the House, Professor Julius Inhombere. The Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, ably represented by Professor Paul Namchi. The High Commissioner of Kenya, here with us, His Excellency Isaac Parashima, the Chairman of the Southeast Development Commission, Chief Emeka Nwogo. I also want to recognize our distinguished senators and members of the House of Representatives that are here, both current and former. The Honorable Minister of Regional Development, Engineer Abubakar Momo, the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduwolu, the Honorable Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Her Excellency Bianca Odimegwu Ojukwu, Honorable Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, Dr. Kingsley Ude, SAN. The Managing Director, Southeast Development Commission, Mark Okoye. The UNDP Resident Representatives in Nigeria, Elsie Atafua. The executive members of the Southeast Development Commission, and I also want to recognize the board members, the executives, and the management of all the other regional development commissions that are here with us today. Please, I want to recognize and acknowledge your presence here. The President General Ohaneze Ndigbo, Senator John Azuta Mbata,
the Catholic Bishop of Awka Diocese, His Lordship Most Reverend Paulinus Eze Okafor, the Chairman of Enugu State Traditional Rulers Council, His Royal Majesty Igwe Samuel Asadu. We have the principal officers and members of Enugu State House of Assembly, heads of security agencies here with us today, revered royal fathers, federal permanent secretaries here with us, the senior special assistant to the president, the senior special assistant to the president on regional development programs, the chairman, deputy chairman of various local governments that are here with us, heads of commissions, boards, institutions, agencies, and parastatals, captains of industries, distinguished guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to the historic city of Enugu, a fitting venue for this forum. I welcome you to a conversation that is no longer optional. I am honored to host you here for the Southeast Vision 2050 Regional Stakeholders Forum. Indeed, coming barely 1 week after the signing of the concessioning agreement of the Akano Ibiam International Airport. And I think it's important to put this in context because this is quite significant. We are here to talk about regional development. And one of the key enablers of regional development is access, movement. And my colleague from Anambra had said so much about the importance of building a common market or a unified market, which, by the way, is what I've been asked to do here today, to reimagine Southeast as a unified economic bloc. So you would understand that because I've been asked to provoke our thoughts, to interrogate the status quo, to interrogate the way we have planned, the way we have executed. So I'm going to resist the temptation of talking about the interventions we've made in Enugu as a state, because I've been asked to reimagine how we can think beyond the boundaries of our state. So I'm going to be talking more about how we are stronger as a region. So I commend the Southeast Development Commission for the intellectual rigor and institutional foresight behind this initiative. I appreciate the collaboration of the Ministry of Regional Development and the Office of the Vice President, whose involvement firmly situates this conversation within Nigeria's National Development Framework. I warmly acknowledge His Excellency, Distinguished Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON, for honoring this forum in accepting to declare it open. Your Excellency, your presence here today reinforces the principle that regional development thrives best when it is nationally enabled and institutionally supported. Sustainable regional development does not occur in isolation. It requires a national leadership that understands diversity, equity, and long-term planning. In this regard, I must recognize the leadership of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. under whose watch Nigeria is witnessing a renewed emphasis on structural reform and regional balance. The creation and strengthening of regional development commissions is a strategic signal that development must be territorially inclusive and economically rational. For the Southeast, this is very significant. It reflects a federal posture that recognizes the region not merely as a political county, but as a critical economic and human asset to Nigeria. The President's approach provides the policy space and the institutional backing for the Southeast to plan long-term, invest smartly, and integrate effectively into national growth priorities. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, let me from the start state that this gathering here today is not to decorate documents, and we also did not gather here to produce another communique that looks impressive but changes nothing. I am here to invite you to a bold reimagining of the Southeast as a unified economic bloc. For too long, we have looked at our 5 states as individual islands. But the era of the solitary paths is over. Today, I propose the birth of the Southeast Common Market, a bold, borderless unification of our commerce, our talent, and our industrial grit by fusing our 5 distinct economies into one powerhouse. We're no longer just negotiating for a seat at the table. We're actually building the tables ourselves. This is more than a policy shift. It is the awakening of an economic giant, transforming the Southeast into a single, seamless theater of enterprise, where our shared heritage fuels our collective prosperity. Across the world, the rules of prosperity are changing. The global economy is being reorganized by technology, by climate pressure, by supply chain realignment, by capital that now moves faster than politics, and by competition that punishes delay. The world is entering a new era where those who can organize themselves, integrate their markets, and build systems at scale will rise. Those who cannot will remain consumers of other people's added value. So today, I want to propose a simple premise. If we want to have a different future, we must build a different system. And a different system begins with a change in how we think. That begins with one decision here in this hall. A decision to change our thinking and undertake a total reimagining of what is possible for the Southeast. We need to interrogate the status quo. This region has a long memory, long before modern borders. And my brother Chukwuma has spoken so well about how is he typifies that, that borderless region. Talked about how he became formed by people from different states and which was once referred to as the Eastern region. Our people understood cooperation not as sentiment, but as logic. Trade moved across communities, skills traveled, markets connected producers and buyers across distances. Identity was common and our purpose was shared. No one waited for permission to collaborate because collaboration was how life worked. That instinct did not disappear, but it was interrupted by the creation of separate administrative states. Today, we feel the consequences. We are culturally aligned, but structurally fragmented. Energetic, but underscaled. Ambitious, but often operating below our collective potential. That fragmentation is no longer a historic footnote. It has become a present-day constraint. The world we are operating in now is unforgiving of disconnection and lack of unity. The global economy does not reward isolated efforts. It rewards regions that can coordinate infrastructure, align with industry, move goods efficiently, mobilize capital at scale, and present a clear, credible proposition to investors and their own people. Nigeria itself is under pressure to make this transition, where challenge, youth unemployment, security challenges, fiscal constraints are forcing us to do the reckoning, and you can see the bold initiative of the renewed hope, the initiative that has seen our macro pressures easing off and doing what, if you look at the macro indicators, were largely stabilized. And now there is a serious work going on to get those benefits, those achievements we have at the macro indicator level percolate at the micro level, at the household level, and the president and his team are working tirelessly to accomplish that. So we can see that the bold policies of this administration is yielding visible progress and tangible results. And within that national system, every region must now answer a hard question. How do we contribute to growth? The president has a target of a 1 trillion economy by 2030. That is not going to come from top bottom. It's going to be built from the peripheral. It's going to come from the subnationals. And it will not happen at scale if we don't integrate on a regional basis. And that is why this is very important. The Southeast cannot answer that question by acting as 5 parallel actors. We see the cost already, even if it arrives quietly.
And you're still watching Newsday here on Arise News. That was coverage of the Southeast Vision 2050 Stakeholders Forum in Enugu, where the Southeast Development Commission engaged key stakeholders on long-term planning, economic growth, and sustainable development for the region.